of flowers, especially honeysuckle and some things like that. Now, sometimes those hedge bushes that are so thick, those are almost sickening. They're so thick, but we're going to get to the negative later. But you drive down and you smell fresh mowed grass. You smell the hay that has been cut and is drying. And I never got any of that because my windows were up and the air conditioner's on. Right? Windows up, air conditioner on, radio's blaring. I don't have a radio in it either, so there we go. So I got all of those smells and the unusual things that I'm sitting at a traffic light and I can hear the argument going on beside me between a husband and a wife. I mean, I wouldn't got to hear that because the window would have been up and the air conditioner on. That would have been difficult, but because their windows were up, I don't think they wanted my input anyway. Now there's another side. Okay, so there are a lot of things there that you're able to smell, and I was able to hear things like the argument. I could even at times hear the birds. If I pull up somewhere driving slow down a country road, I can hear the birds, and I could. Oh, by the way, early in the morning, especially, you drive across a small stream or something, you get that whiff of it's water, I guess. It's where the stream is. Maybe it's mud. I'm not sure, but you get that whiff of that. So then there's the other side. If you drive anywhere around Walker, Winston, any of those counties, a lot of you that drive back roads, you'll get a pretty good whiff of a skunk every now and then. Undeniable. I know some of you have never, you might have smelled it, but you didn't know what it was, but if you ever get it, you know what. And by the way, if there is a dead animal, especially in this weather we've been having lately, it will get your attention very quickly, and you press down on that accelerator very fast to get past that dead animal. It might be one right in the middle of the road, but there's one over on Burroughs Road, Burroughs Crossing, near the drag line. There's a deer that's been there for a while, and it's smelling good about right now. Okay. So there are sights, there are sounds, there are smells that I only get because my windows are down. All of my windows are down. Those are things that I would not get. I would miss all of those, the good and the bad. I'd miss every one of them because my window would be up, the air conditioner would be wide open, and if I had a radio, it would be playing classic rock 99.5, okay? Or 106.9, okay. No, I don't have an air conditioner, don't have a radio, so I experienced a wide array of things that I discovered with my senses. It probably allowed me to see things that I might not have seen because I heard noises. By the way, I knew my brakes needed replacing because when I stopped, if my air conditioner was on, it might not have known that. So how is your air conditioner in your truck going out like the Gospel of Mark? Mark, you're going to write it down? Mark wants you to experience Jesus with all your senses. He wants you to be able to look at Jesus, these readers of his gospel. He wants the readers of his words to experience Jesus in every way possible, all senses, to be able to be alert and aware and know that this is something important and significant, and I need to pay attention to this. I need to be aware and alert and pay attention because I need to know who Jesus is. And so Mark's going to show us who Jesus is, and we're going to be able to consume him in a lot of different ways. A lot of our senses are going to be able to take in Jesus. Sight, sounds, smells, taste, all of those. Not literally all of those, but you get the idea that Mark is portraying Jesus. He's showing us Jesus, that he's showing us who Jesus is. He's demonstrating the kingdom that Jesus brings. and as a result of that, then he's encouraging all of the readers to be discoverers of this Jesus that he's talking about. So feel free to use that anytime you want to for an illustration. But it kind of hit, because sometimes, you know, when Mark is talking about Jesus, remember up to this time, and we haven't gone very far because we're at the end of chapter 4, so we haven't moved very far into the Gospel of Mark, but one of the things that he has done is he's shown us the compassion of Jesus. He's shown us the power of Jesus. He's shown us the fact that Jesus has power over many elements in the world, the evil spirits, disease. He's shown us that he has power over nature. He's shown us that he has power over so many things, that his words are powerful, that they are words that are words of authority. And so he's showing us Jesus in a lot of different ways, from a lot of different perspectives. So what's going to happen now in this miracle where Jesus calms the storm? You're going to be introduced to Jesus, and it's more than just a miracle where Jesus calms the storm. There's more to it than just, oh, Jesus' power over nature. There's more to it, because there's a little more at play here, because there's this interaction with the disciples, and there seems to have been an underlying purpose for this moment. And Mark records it in his gospel for a reason. He puts it here in this place for a reason, because he's just had this series of kingdom parables, and now he's going back to talk about some miracles. And this particular miracle, and then he's going in chapter 5 straight into healing a man with a demon, and so he's going back to miracles now. So let's read 35 through. Well, let's read 35 through 38, and we'll come back and finish up after we make some comments on 35 through 38. So this is Mark 4:35 beginning. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Okay, so here's the setting. This is what's going on. Remember, this is one of the things that Jesus has dealt with throughout the Gospel of Mark, and that is that the throngs of people are pressing against him, and he has to have some relief. So he leaves them behind. That seems to be the case here, because when evening had come, he said to his disciples, "Let's go across to the other side." It seems that there's this need for him to get away from the throngs of people that are on that side of the lake. So he's ready to move. He is ready to move to the other side of the lake. It might be simply that he wants to minister to a new group of people. Whatever the case, he says, "Let us go across to the other side." So the next verse, this is verse 36, they leave the crowd and they get on the boat. And Mark gives some commentary there and says there were other boats with him. The significance of that might be that there are people following them. It might be that there were more disciples than could get in one of those fishing boats. From what I understand, these fishing boats are very likely able to hold a maximum of about 12 to 15 people, something like that. Maybe about 7, 8 feet wide, 25 or so feet long. And if you're going to catch any fish and you're going to do any work, you can't get 15 people on there. The guys that went fishing on that little what was that, a fellowship? Men's retreat, that's right. we filled that little boat up, that big boat up, and we were in each other's way because we were shoulder to shoulder at times. So if you're going to do any work on a boat that size, you're not going to have 15 on it. Well, they weren't doing any work; they were using it to transport. But there are other boats around. Is it holding others that are close to Jesus as disciples but not apostles? Very possibly. We don't understand. He doesn't give us any explanation about why there were other boats there. Now here's the significance of what's about to take place, and that is that there was this storm that came up. English Standard says that it was a great windstorm. That's a pretty good translation because it seems that when you think about the definition of what that means, that's exactly the literal translation of that would be there was this windstorm that was very violent. There was this windstorm that was very powerful. Interesting that we're studying this just after the hurricane has hit our coast. I don't know that it was anything that powerful, but it wouldn't have mattered, would it? It wouldn't have mattered if it was something that powerful or not. So the boat is about to fill up. It says that the waves are breaking into the boat. It seems that these waves are so big that they're coming over the boat and the water's coming into the boat. And you know the only thing that can sink a ship is when water gets in the ship. So you're trying to keep the water out of the ship. So the fact that the boat is filling at the end of verse 37 is very significant. Where is Jesus? Verse 38. Jesus is in the stern, asleep on the cushion, obviously not affected by the waves, by the storm, by whatever's going on outside the boat, not affected by any of that. So they wake him up, and their words to him are, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" All right, that's a good place to stop, because remember that some of these men that are the apostles are professional fishermen. We know of four. We know Peter and Andrew, James and John were fishermen, and so would something like a storm be something that they were aware of and knew how to maneuver and knew how to handle? Would that be something that would be general knowledge of a fisherman who was on the water in a fishing boat? Wouldn't that be something they'd normally be able to handle? So does that then tell you that this was something that was extraordinary? The storm was extra severe? Does that seem what this is communicating? Because if it had just been your usual storm, then they probably would have been able to maneuver and handle that and keep everything upright and get to the other side safely. But it seems that this storm is an extra special storm. It's an extra violent. Well, it was described as being a great windstorm, and it seems that it's not one of those kinds of storms that these fishermen would be used to. It's not one that they've experienced in the past, or maybe they have and they know what's about to happen. Maybe they've seen boats torn to pieces. Maybe they've seen boats sink in the water. Maybe they've seen all of that. But the thing that we notice is that the Sea of Galilee, it's not a very large. When we think about sea, it's not a very large sea. I think I read where it's about 64 square miles or something like that. That's pretty good size, I guess. But when you think about sea, we sometimes think about something larger. But still, it's big enough that the storms would be able to form and be of this severe nature. Furious squall. Uh-huh. Right. Okay. So, do you know why it's different than just a regular windstorm? What's a squall? Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Mm. Right. So the thing that has them frightened is they have no control. Normally, they would be able to sail away from it or out of it or the other direction, but the wind is so fierce and the storm is so severe and these waves are so huge that they see their end being wrecked, be shipwrecked. They see that for sure. What's interesting is when they come to Jesus, by the way, why would they even wake Jesus up? Why would they go to Jesus? Why did they make that move in the beginning? Okay, they were scared, but what did they think Jesus could do about it? Could do what now? Okay, so there was, do you think that the reason they woke him up is because they believed he had an answer to this storm? Whether it was stop it or maybe he could snap his fingers and we're going to be on the other side. I don't know what they thought, but what seems to be truth here is that they had some kind of confidence in Jesus that he could help them out of this situation, whatever that was. That's obvious, or they wouldn't have awakened him, except their words are puzzling, aren't they? Don't you care about us? Don't you care that we're about to die? Do you have no compassion for us? We're about to die. Those are kind of odd words to say. If Randy's asleep in the boat and I need his help to row, I'm going to go shake him and wake him up and say, get up here and help us fight this storm. But that's not what they said. Do you not have any compassion for us? Do you not have any concern? Is there no care in your heart for us, that you would allow us to perish? So they come to him evidently with some kind of confidence, believing that he can help them in this storm, this howling wind with the waves that are breaking into the boat and the water's filling the boat, and the answer for them seems to be to wake Jesus up and get him involved somehow. I know. There's been a lot of speculation as to how he could sleep through it all. You know he's physically exhausted, but you also know in whom he trusted, so he wasn't afraid of any storm, like you and I would be. If we heard thunder in the distance and we're on a boat, I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to do it. Say it again? Yes, exactly. And what did you say, Randy? Yeah, another miracle, and sometimes we read it like that, and that's why I said in the beginning, it's not just another miracle, because there's more to it than this, because it highlights, or Jesus highlights something. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but so they come to him with some kind of faith. They come to him with some kind of understanding that he can do something. Mm-hmm. We want you to be awake and alert when you die. Is that what they're? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Maybe that was it. One of the things that we often go to when we're looking at this is what was their purpose of waking him up? And that was why I asked that question. Ryan brings up the idea that they saw their end was near. They had seen this before. They had grown up seeing these kind of things, and so Ryan's point might be that, hey, you need to be aware we're about to perish. This boat is about to sink. We're going, yeah, because that's what they thought. It kind of goes along. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good observation. It goes. Right, right. Well, the thing that's going to happen is they're going to be chastised because they didn't. So the answer to the question, why did they wake him up, was it because they believed he could do something, or was it because we're all going to die? They had that made up in their mind, and they didn't really believe that he could do anything. So when he does something, we hadn't got there yet. We hadn't moved in that direction yet, past 38. But when he actually does something, it brings more fear as they kind of get an understanding of who this teacher really is. Because when they wake him, it is teacher, do you not care that we're perishing? All right, so there's some different ideas of why they wake him up. Did they believe he could do something? Did they just wake him up because they knew they were about to die, because they knew what the end result was of a storm like this, in a boat like that, and there was nothing that anybody could do? So what do you those are the options. But let's go on to verse 39 and following, because when they wake him up, verse 39, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Okay, so there's Jesus' response. He's asleep. He is unconcerned about the problem that the apostles are so scared, because they know that the end result of what's happening is death. They've seen it. They know it happens. If they haven't seen it personally, they've heard about it. There's stories. You know, there's stories about this kind of squall, about this kind of storm. So, what does Jesus do? Jesus doesn't speak to them. He doesn't show them any concern or any attention. He simply speaks. And he says, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and the waves got calm. That's a miracle. Believe me, that is some more miracle. That is one of those miracles that is up there with what's the highest, the most difficult thing that a human being could do, as far as a miracle is, or someone could do, that Jesus could do, that God could do. That's right up there with one of those most difficult, because we're talking about a force of nature that has the ability to destroy mankind, destroy lives, kill, destroy boats, destroy ports, destroy all this. And Jesus demonstrates his power over that force of nature simply by speaking, "Peace, be still." Immediately, there was no more wind, and there was great calm. I would like to have been a fly on the wall when it's calm. I don't want to be on that boat in the middle of that storm. But wouldn't you like to be able to look into the faces of those apostles as he speaks? The wind and the waves stopped. Yeah. It gives us no information that Randy brings up about those other boats that are there. It seems that they would have also had to have been going through this same storm, and they also were the beneficiary of this miracle that Jesus performed. All of them probably scared, just like these on this boat with Jesus are. Yeah, Brandon has a good observation, and I think it's a very good explanation of they believed that Jesus could do something maybe in their biggest imagination. They never believed that that could happen. But maybe he could just get us through this. Maybe he can just right the ship. Maybe he can snap his fingers and we're through it. But stop the storm? They didn't see that coming. There's no way. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the result. Here's why I say this is not just Mark talking about Jesus performing miracles. Because up to now, what's Mark said about Jesus doing miracles? Well, they brought great crowds to him, people who were sick, people who were filled with evil spirits, and Jesus healed them and cast out demons. And we've had a few specific illustrations already in the Gospel of Mark. And it seems that most every time they have been moments when Jesus would use them as a teachable moment. When you get to chapter 5, where he heals this man with a demon, when he casts out the demons, the legions, when we get to that one, which may not be tonight, but that'll be your homework to read chapter 5, verses 1 through 20 or something like that. But when you look at that one of the things that's going to happen there is he's actually going to tell this man, you go tell folks about it. He hasn't done that before. Matter of fact, up to now he's been saying, be quiet, don't tell anybody, but he tells him, you go evangelize, you go tell folks. So there's always been something that's attached to the miracle, except when Mark gives us this, the great crowds thronged and he healed many, something like that. So there's always been something special. But this one, quite unique, because after Jesus performs this colossal miracle that demonstrates his power over nature, is it any more of a miracle than the turning water into wine? Well, not really. I mean, all it took was Jesus to say, peace, be still. It didn't take any real strength or any more of his power to do that than it did for him to tell them to pour water in these jars. Yes, yeah. The dire nature of the situation makes it an amazing miracle, doesn't it? And the fact that we know what he's talking about here. You may not have ever been on a lake in the middle of a storm, but you know what it is to be in a storm. I guarantee you everybody here has been in this kind of storm where you are afraid you're going to die. Our daughter rode through a hurricane in Foley a couple of years ago, and she said, never again, never again. I thought the top was coming off. It was creaking and popping and snapping, and I thought the top of my house was coming off. I'm never right. It was a small hurricane. So we've all had that kind of experience. So here they are in the middle of this experience, and Jesus performs this colossal miracle where he says, peace be still. Everything ceases. There's no more wind. There's no more wave. And now, verse 41. And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? That statement right there lets me know that they didn't understand. But now they have a better understanding. And it makes me think that when they went to wake Jesus up, they might not have gone to wake him up so that he could do something, or maybe what they thought he might do was really, really small compared to what he actually did. Mm-hmm. Yes. Ryan's statement, I don't know if you never heard it, but one of the things that Mark is doing is showing us who Jesus is. You learn who Jesus is, you learn more about God, you see God, you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And one of the things that you see about God right here is that he removed that source of fear. Immediately he removed that. And that moment, he didn't chastise them. He didn't give them a lesson in how your faith needs to be stronger, and you shouldn't be so fearful, and shame on you, or any of that. He didn't do any of that. He stopped it, and so you have this miracle that is used as this illustration that results in faith. It results in faith. Now, if you read through any of the Gospels, you will see that there are miracles like this, and there are miracles that, like Mark has already recorded, the healings, the casting out of the demons, the curing of disease and raising from the dead, and those kind of, and the ones that would show his power over nature. So you see the very nature and heart of Jesus in this performing of this miracle for the benefit of his disciples. And what's the purpose of it? To build faith. John says, I have chosen to record these miracles to bring you to the point of belief. That's what John says, the reason he wrote his gospel. John 20, 30 and 31. Many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you might believe. Mm-hmm. So verse 40, he asked them, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? So the question there is, after everything's calmed down, the sea has calmed, the wind has calmed, and he questions about their fear that was prompted by a lack of their faith in him. And then that statement that is made about the disciples at the very end of that. Who then is this that even the wind and the waves and the sea obey him? Quite a dramatic conclusion, isn't it? I mean, again, it's not just a miracle that Mark chose and threw out there and said, look what Jesus did, look how amazing Jesus is. No, there's more to it than that. It is, look at what happened as a result of what Jesus did, and that was that the disciples came to a better understanding of this teacher that they're following. yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So that lets us, Paul's statement is, from our human perspective, they were following him, but still didn't have that really good understanding of what he was capable of. Um, and sometimes we want to persecute them, to point fingers at them and say, well, they should have known because they had seen him do so many miracles. They'd seen his power. They'd witnessed it all, and the throngs of people that came and believed because of what Jesus had done. And you've got these 12 that are there with him for every one of these, not just in Bethany or Galilee, but they're with him in Bethany and Galilee and Nazareth and everywhere. And they've seen it all. But still, Jesus knew that they still needed life lessons, and he gives them a huge one right here.